Hey everybody, welcome into Smart Digestion Radio. My name is Dr. Christine Kaczmar, and you are listening to my Dow, Monsanto, GMO Rant for episode 9.
What do you get when you cross Albert Einstein with digestive enzymes and a fistful of kale? Smart Digestion Radio with Dr. Christine Kaczmar, the all things diet, nutrition, vitality show for the wellness-minded.
All right, so here is an article that is worth mentioning here on Smart Digestion on this episode, and that is about 2,4-D resistant soybean and corn seeds. So this article I read from the naturalnews.com site, a fantastic site. If you don't subscribe to that, please do. And this is written by Charles Sanchez. The headline is, the USDA moves to deregulate herbicide-resistant genetically modified corn and soybean seeds. The USDA has recently released a draft environmental impact statement, known as a DEIS, suggesting the deregulation of 2,4-D resistant soybean and corn seeds. Dow AgroSciences, in direct competition with Monsanto Company, made the request and plans to fully unleash the seeds within the U.S. by 2015, pending the acceptance by various federal agencies. While some farmers have come out in favor of the seed deregulation, concerned scientists have expressed fears over the potential dangers associated with the increased use of the 2,4-D herbicide. At this stage in the deregulation process, the public is in the midst of a 45-day open comment session with the USDA, which began on January 3, 2014. It is during this time period that scientists and concerned citizens have the opportunity to voice their opinions regarding the potential deregulation of the seeds. 2,4-D, a key component of the once weaponized defoliant known as Agent Orange, has been declared a non-threat, as various scientists believe it is not the chemical responsible for the horrendous health effects attributed to Agent Orange. Now that's frightening. Continuing on. Currently, the 2,4-D herbicide has had limited use in crops, as it is very toxic to plants early on in their lifespan. Maybe if it's toxic to the plants early on, perhaps it's going to remain so, right? Anyway, I digress. Moving forward, thus, the deregulation of resistant seeds carries the implication of major profits for Dow AgroSciences. Exactly. The use of such 2,4-D resistant seeds directly infers a future increase in the use of 2,4-D, as rampant use of the chemical Roundup has fostered the development of hyper-resistant superweeds. Here's where it gets really scary. What are the health risks associated with 2,4-D, you ask? The herbicide 2,4-D has been linked in studies to a series of serious health conditions, several of which are mentioned below. Studies conducted on crop workers from Europe and Kansas in the 70s suggested an association between the chemical and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. In the 1990s, a University of Minnesota study found that birth defects in children doubled when conceived by crop workers during times when 2,4-D was being sprayed on crops. A study conducted at the University of Saskatchewan showed 2,4-D has negative health effects on the endocrine system, primarily regarding the thyroid and gonads. Various other independent studies have shown 2,4-D to have links with breast cancer, Parkinson's disease, low sperm counts, and the increase of abnormal sperm. As a result of these and further studies, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and areas of Canada have moved to ban usage of the chemical altogether. Thank God, right? What's up with the states? Come on! In the U.S., however, a consortium of scientists, along with the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, contend that the chemical is relatively safe for those use around humans. Other scientists have decried such statements as inaccurate and insufficiently supported. The main criticism of studies purporting the safety of 2,4-D use around humans is that the pure form of 2,4-D used in testing is not the same as the powered-up version of the chemical being used in the herbicide products themselves. As of now, several petitions have been formed in an attempt to stop the USDA from deregulating the seeds. So there you have it from naturalnews.com. Very, very great story. So alarming on the other hand, but this is the type of thing that you need to get in there. You need to get dirty and investigate on your own, people, because any of you buying Roundup, this is something that is contributing to destroying our soil. Our soil is not the same as it once was. And since the soil isn't the same, what's even worse, as far as I'm concerned, is what this is doing to the bees, to the flowers. They're not able to pollinate like they once were. This is affecting everything, these types of pesticides, glyphosate and things like this. That's what's in Roundup. It just is not right to buy this stuff. It's just not right. It's making everything, all of our gardens, it's just making the butterflies go away, the bees go away. You know how healthy your environment is when you're still seeing things like a praying mantis, bees, all sorts of bugs that we saw when we were little kids. I grew up in the 70s. Have you ever noticed you don't see those as much anymore? That's partly because we are pesticide spraying our asses off, and it has to really stop. People have to be really educated about how we are singularly destroying our planet, let alone collectively. So we have these big giant biotech companies doing their heinous part, of course, but as an individual, as a family, as a neighborhood, as a community, we're also contributing to this problem when we're not informed about what these pesticides and what these chemicals are doing. So I hope, not trying to be on a soapbox by any means, but I don't spray any of that junk where I live, and I know plenty of you listeners don't either, but we need to spread the word because people don't even realize what they're doing when they're spraying Roundup or whatever it is, pesticide-wise, on their lawn, on their plants, whatever the case may be. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move into corn, genetically modified corn, and making a comparison to organic corn. And this, again, was taken from naturalnews.com, written by Lance Johnson. So as Monsanto parades their genetically modified seed, throwing it out like candy into the fields, future generations are being subjected to nutritionally void, disease-causing food. As the government protects the GMO industry with its recent signing of the Monsanto Protection Act, the Republic's health interests are being discarded. A 2012 study called the Corn Comparison Report was recently released by Profit Pro and published on the website for Moms Across America March to Label GMOs, a group dedicated to raising awareness about the dangers of genetically modified organisms. The Corn Comparison Report detailed the nutritional deficiencies of GMO corn compared to regular organic corn. The report reveals the stunning levels of glyphosate in GMO corn and the amount of vital nutrients that have been drawn out. GMO corn is nutritionally void. The nutrition statistics for GMO corn are bone-chilling, and here's what the report says. Organic corn has 14 parts per million of manganese, whereas GMO corn has only 2 parts per million. Again, organic corn, 14, compared to GMO's 2. Real corn has 7 times more manganese, in other words. Organic corn has 6,130 parts per million of calcium, whereas GMO corn is stripped down to a paltry 14. That means real corn, organic corn, has 437 times the calcium as GMO corn. 437 times the calcium. Organic corn has 113 parts per million of magnesium. GMO corn, a vacant 2. So, real corn, organic corn, has 56 times more magnesium. So you have to be kidding me here. So you have to realize with the digestive system, these 3 minerals, manganese, calcium, magnesium, imagine the nutritional void you are consuming when you eat GMO. You have to stop. We all have to stop. We have to fight these guys. I mean, this is outrageous that this act, this Monsanto Protection Act was passed. And I like how he refers to it, Lance, how he refers to it, the Republic's health interests. All right, further on. GMO corn contains alarming glyphosate levels. The amount of formaldehyde and glyphosate in GMO corn is unbelievable. To break it down, American EPA standards allow glyphosate in water of up to 0.7 parts per million. European tests indicate that animals begin experiencing liver damage at 0.0001 parts per million of glyphosate in water. Putting these two statistics together, America's water levels contain glyphosate that is 7,000 times greater than the amount required for animal liver damage. Remember, they're saying that animals experience liver damage at 0.0001, and in our country, in America, they allow us to put up to 0.7. So this is 7,000 times greater than what's causing damage in livers of animals. GMO corn takes that statistic up yet another notch. GMO corn contains 13 parts per million of glyphosate, or the equivalent of 130,000 times more toxicity than EPA water standards. Yikes. So said another way, if our water is 7,000 times worse, okay, in our country than other countries with its toxicity of glyphosate, our corn is 130,000 times more toxic than the water. Oh, man. So if you're out there eating corn, I'd reconsider. All right. The formaldehyde level of GMO corn is unspeakable. In a similar study on GMO corn, Dr. Huber found out that animals avoid GMO corn at all costs. When given a choice between both GMO and non-GMO varieties of corn, animals always go for the real organic corn. Isn't that amazing? Huber also found out that 0.97 parts per million of formaldehyde is toxic to animals. Now check this out. GMO corn that he tried to give the animals contained 200 times that amount. So this begs the questions. Why is something this toxic fed to humans? Why would humans touch this stuff in the first place? Are people devolving? Have their instincts been shut down? Is their intuition numb? Are they distracted by pretty labels and promises of safety? This is what Lance writes. March against GMOs. Genetically modified organisms are an open invitation to disease, cancer, and infertility. What a person consumes is what they become. Eating nutrient-void, formaldehyde-laden GMO corn is beckoning a disease-ridden population. There is enough evidence out now that explains the horror of genetically modified food. Any corporation that feeds this genetically modified system to the public or to the people should be tried for crimes against humanity. Let me read that again. Any corporation that feeds this genetically modified system to the people should be tried for crimes against humanity. So well said. Sadly, Monsanto and other biotech giants may have just been pardoned from their crimes against humanity. Through recent lobbying with the federal government, Monsanto was able to protect their GMO industry and get Congress and President Obama to pass a provision that exempts them from GMO liability. This law was signed into motion on March 26th and allows biotech companies like Monsanto to bypass federal approval tests and plant their GMO crops despite well-known health risks. This provision frees biotech companies from their liability to the people and from judicial accountability. In other words, this leaves justice, freedom, and the future of health in the people's hands out of the question. Wow. Okay, so I went over to momsacrossamerica.com, which was the site mentioned in naturalnews.com, and this was on their blog from March 15th, 2013. And what they write is, the important thing to note in these deficiencies is that these are exactly the deficiencies in a human being that lead to susceptibility to sickness, disorders, and cancer. People who have osteoporosis are low in calcium and magnesium. People who have cancer are low in manganese. The list goes on. And then they go ahead and they recant the GMO corn has 14 parts per million of calcium and the non-GMO has 6,130 and so forth. And then it also says, look at the levels of formaldehyde and glyphosate in the corn. The EPA standards for glyphosate in water in America is 0.7. European tests showed organ damage at 0.1 parts per billion of glyphosate in water. Our water levels allow glyphosate 7,000 times higher than what has been shown to be toxic in animals. Elizabeth Doherty's talk radio 0.97 parts per million of formaldehyde showed to be toxic in ingestion to animals. This corn has 200 times that. That is why the animals, given a choice, will not eat it at all. They can smell the formaldehyde. So that explains why they didn't go near it, because they could smell it, but I bet they have just a better innate sense anyways. Head on over to momsacrossamerica.com. On the site, you can hang out with them on their Facebook, Twitter, email. All that stuff is right there for you. It's a good-looking site. Definitely something for Smart Digestion Radio to be aware of. One of our allies. So on the same blog, momsacrossamerica.com, for this year, just the other day, January 20th, 2014, they posted the Swanson chart, glyphosate and GMOs linked to neurological disorders and more. Nancy Swanson has done extensive research that we moms with little ones just do not have the time. We are very grateful for her charts, which very clearly depict a correlation between GMOs sprayed with glyphosate and numerous childhood and adult illnesses which plague our families in America. The endocrine disrupting properties of glyphosate can lead to neurological disorders, learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, autism, dementia, Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. Those most susceptible are children and the elderly. In addition, GMOs and glyphosate have been linked to birth defects and infant deaths. This is from 2013 Argentina. Dr. Medardo Vasquez is a neonatal specialist at the Children's Hospital in Cordoba. She says, quote, I see newborn infants, many of whom are malformed. I have to tell parents that their children are dying because of these agricultural methods. In some areas in Argentina, the primary cause of death for children less than 1 year old are malformations. So that's from Fritz Kreis News Report, Sunday, March 17th, 2013. Out of the top 5 reasons for the death of children, 57% of them were conditions like SIDS, congenital birth defects, anomalies, etc., that we are seeing a correlation to GMOs and glyphosate. This was from Sacramento, California. So rounding out another crop, sugar beets, and their dangers with genetic modification, comes an article from Carol Ann Wright from October 2012. Again, this is from the naturalnews.com site. And she writes, the USDA recently deemed that genetically modified sugar beets are safe and deregulated the crop. Safe in quotes. Since 2008, a lawsuit has been raging between the agency and groups like the Center for Food Safety, Organic Seed Alliance, and the Sierra Club about the safety of GM sugar beets. Now, thanks to the USDA, sugar from the beets can spread unhindered throughout the food supply, contaminating everything within reach. Almost 95% of U.S. sugar beets come from GM seeds, genetically modified seeds. An amazing feat considering they were only approved for planting in 2005. Sugar beets comprise over 50% of U.S. sugar production, while the rest comes from sugar cane. GM crops, genetically modified crops that is, have been shown to increase the likelihood of cancer, changes in major organs and the gastrointestinal tract, allergic reactions, infertility, and accelerated aging. GM sugar appears to be a major avenue for the development of disease when the sheer quantities the average American consumes an astonishing 130 pounds a year. That's saying we consume singularly, individually, solely, 130 pounds of sugar per year. Many are beginning to see the connection with a high sugar diet and disease, prompting individuals to avoid it as much as possible. Sugar scares me. Now, with the widespread use of genetically modified sugar beets, the hazards of sugar are even more disturbing, Cantley sums up. So there's another example of, we have, corn, we have our wheat, we have our sugar beets, we have so many things that we need to be careful of out there. And there's enough to worry about, right? So this is maddening, I understand. But the more informed you are, the healthier you're going to be. It's just what it's come down to these days. There you have it. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Smart Digestion Radio. If you want all of the links and so forth, please head on over to thedigestiondoctor.com/9. And also while there, sign up for my free VIP email list, and you will be up to snuff on everything that we're doing over at The Digestion Doctor. I super, super appreciate you being here and listening, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Smart Digestion Radio with Dr. Christine Kaczmar. Have the most beautiful day.